This is Business Nigeria. Let's get into our first conversation, shall we? Nigeria may be able to boast of having the most number of startups in Africa, the continent, but lacks in a number of other significant areas as the country's startup ecosystem is without doubt vibrant and lucrative, despite the unlimited potential of the sector to the overall growth and development of the Nigerian economy. It is still fraught by many hurdles affecting its growth prospects. The challenges, however, faced by startups in the country all lie within the environment, and so their possible solutions are not far-fetched from the government. To look into these challenges and, of course, perhaps prefer possible solutions, I'm joined by Mr. Idowu Akinde. He's a startup coach, and he joins me virtually on the program. Mr. Idowu, thank you indeed for agreeing to speak with us and join us here on Business Nigeria. Paint a picture for us, perhaps, if you may, about what the story is like of startup businesses in the country at this time.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for having me today. Startup building is hard. There's no way to sugarcoat the truth. But for those who volunteer to take the challenge, it might be, one of the most rewarding journeys, that they ever undertake. More importantly, given the kinds of questions or areas where I've seen that most startups, literally hundreds, and maybe even thousands of startups need help with, will include things like building something that nobody wants, okay? Or believing that, their customer wants what they think they want, okay? So I can tell you easily that up to 85% of startups launched, and this is not a Nigerian problem, this is not an African problem, this is a global problem. Up to 85% of startups that will launch this year, for instance, will fail, not because of lack of access to funds, but because of lack of something called product market fit. And the layman's definition of the technical term product market fit is building something that people want. So, in summary, right, it takes a while to really lay the groundwork for product market fit, but in summary, think of it like this. It is possible for Idowu Akinde, an innovator, an ideator, someone who knows how to use innovation tools, to assume that because there is a vulcanizer right outside my house that I see every day, I can assume that I know the problems of that vulcanizer. I can go and build a new fintech product for the vulcanizers in Nigeria, or a new Uber product for the vulcanizers in Nigeria. But the risk with that approach is that I'm assuming that I know what that vulcanizer needs, okay? The fact that I see him every day does not mean I have the authority to make that assertion. And there are loads of startups who are doing exactly what I just described. They imagine in their minds, they feel confident with the assumptions that they've made. And making assumptions, I'm not shooting against making assumptions. Making assumptions is okay, right? However, the difference between the 15% of the startups that will succeed and the 85% that will fail is that those that succeed subject themselves to some process of verifying or validating that the assumptions they made about the vulcanizer or the mechanic or the hairdresser or the HR professional, whomever the client is, the assumptions they made are valid. The others do not care about verifying the validity of those assumptions. I hope I haven't been too technical. I hope I've spoken in layman's language.
Well, hopefully as the conversation continues, you can also simplify other issues for us. So, so it means that you're putting this at a table of those who have decided to go into such businesses. But I'm also just curious to find out. So when you also consider the environment where we find ourselves, the issues around For instance, the power sector, which has been very epileptic. There are also issues around the environment really being very hostile and unfriendly and hard. How does that contribute to a factor, or perhaps factors that mitigate against startup businesses in the country?
Okay. All right. So one cannot have a meaningful conversation about startups without mentioning or talking about the ease of doing business. Okay. As you said, the temperature of the environment within which business is carried out. As you know, the ease of doing business index is a global index. Nigeria has a ranking or a score or a rating on that index, as do many other countries. Like you alluded, there are a number of factors that naturally militate against starting a new business. And I am not even talking about a startup. I'm not even talking about a startup just yet, okay? Building a small business, which is a superset of the startup, automatically faces a lot of challenges in Nigeria. You can think of those challenges in three broad categories. There's technology infrastructure that is very, very, very missing. Okay, so we need a lot of, technology, I'll call it technology talent infrastructure. We need the people, okay? The few people that have the skills to empower startups to succeed locally are attracted by the forex rates and the prospects, the brain drain, the prospects of living abroad. So that's the first point, the first type of infrastructure, tech talent. The second is power, okay? Until we fix power, we really, really, really cannot expect the huge leapfrog in productivity that we are hoping for to happen. We really, really, really need to fix power at scale. Yes, we know that a few people are starting to experience slightly higher uptimes, in terms of percentage in different areas of the country, usually the affluent neighborhoods, but it's not enough. We need power at scale, for the hundreds of millions of Nigerians. The third leg of that infrastructure is network and internet infrastructure. So we need to have a better quality of internet, okay? Yes, we are not where we used to be 5 years, maybe 10 years ago, but there's still much, much more that is desirable. We're looking forward to the promise of 5G, such that this kind of conversation that we're having over a video call today can even be further accentuated. Do you understand? So, I mean, those are the three legs of the infrastructure that create the enabling environment for startups to thrive.
Yes. Well, so I would engage you very quickly around policies by the current administration. But just before I do, perhaps on a scale of 1 to 10, where do we stand in the continent? When you take a look at our tech space and startups, for instance, where do we stand in the continent?
Well, so that depends on how you're looking at it. But by and large, I think everybody on the continent agrees that Lagos is currently the startup capital of the continent, and by extension, Nigeria, okay? So going by last year's, and even this year's startup, volume of startup deals, startup investment deals that happened on the continent last year, about 5 billion last year, and so far, as to date, till the end of September, about 7 billion so far. It's clear that Nigeria is the clear leader, okay? So in terms of volume of deals, in terms of value of those deals, we are currently the clear leader. So these things I'm saying about infrastructure, however, are to help us maintain that position. South Africa is coming behind us, and South Africa has about three cities that put together are giving us a close run for the money. If we increase our infrastructure along these three legs that I've spoken about, then we stand a better chance of increasing the lead, okay? But, by and large, so far, everybody knows that Lagos, and by extension, Nigeria, is the startup capital of Africa. There are a few other hotspots. There's Egypt, there's Nairobi, there's Kigali, Rwanda, maybe Tunisia coming
right.
up, Ghana as well.
Yes.
But Lagos is clearly.
Okay, as we begin to wind down on our conversation, Mr. Idowu, well, let's do an appraisal of some of the policies by the current administration, the Central Bank of Nigeria, for instance. Kudos to the government has introduced a lot of initiatives and policies. However, when you take a look at some of the policies and the reality on ground, it does appear there is a sort of gap or bridge between the policies of the government and those who are indeed the players who are on the field. What exactly could be playing out? Why are we getting it wrong?
I have a couple of ideas, and at best, they are ideas. Let me explain. Number one is, and it's perhaps at the roots of, if you do the root cause analysis, it's perhaps the root cause of this disparity that you've spoken about. If you think about the demography, the distribution of Nigeria, if you think about the ruling class in Nigeria, the people who make decisions on behalf of 200 million people, if you look at the average age of those people, you find that the average person in government in Nigeria at any level, tertiary, that's federal government, state government, or local government, or any of the other arms of government, are usually 55 years and above. Okay, just look at it. Just look around you. That's one side of the thing. Now, if you look at the other side, if you think about the demography of Nigeria, 200 million people, statistics tell us that 70% of Nigeria is 35 years and below. This automatically creates a disparity in the people who are making decisions and the people for whom decisions are being made. Am I saying that Nigeria is ready for a 30-something-year-old president? Perhaps not necessarily. But is there a way we can find a way, is there a way we can push younger people into greater percentages of representations in decision-making? Decision-making does not necessarily, just yet, have to mean office holding. It could be community forum building, a town hall building, and other ways of bringing young people into the conversation. I believe that many of the issues, right, that our government has continually had are because of this change in mentality, change in worldview, disparity in worldview. The ruling class, and therefore the decision-making demographic, thinks in a certain way. They have an autocratic, we will give instructions, if you like, obey, if you like, don't obey, that's your business. That's their general approach to life. And that's the general approach to their demography, their generations. However, if you look at the people who are 35 years and below in Nigeria today, they require a more collaborative, inclusive stakeholder management style, right? If you want to get 35 years old and below to participate or like what you are doing, you cannot make decisions on their behalf and communicate the decision. You need to involve them in the formulation of those decisions. Okay. So for me, we can then take this and we can start to open it up into a number of other things, but perhaps we don't have the time. But that is the point that I would feel most cogent to make. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure we have to leave it at that, Mr. Idowu, but I'd asked about our place in the continent, and I'm just looking at a report here that has placed Egypt and Kenya above us in terms of receiving more funds from investors who, of course, want to trade in the continent. I hope that, of course, with a transition phase in place and a new government in place in 2023, we'll probably perhaps see a better environment for investors all around the world to want to, come to Nigeria and do more. But that's a good place to anchor a conversation. Startup coach, Mr. Idowu Akinde, rather. Thank you indeed for speaking with us.